Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to LP Terms, where we talk all things violent horror. Peter Jones, how's it going?
Hello, great to be here again.
Absolutely, man. Round three, baby. There we go, and a very important round, to say the least.
Yes.
We are here once again reviewing the full studio discography of one of the greatest bands in the fucking world, Iron Maiden. And what a hell of a number three, because we got Number of the Beast from Iron Maiden. This is coming out in 1982, and arguably one of their biggest records to date. Obviously, an iconic record. This record is known to be one of the greatest heavy metal records in history. Martin Birch is back once again. As I said in the Killers review, we're going to see him all the way up to Fear of the Dark. And none other than Bruce fucking Dickinson is in the room. Entering the room, Bruce Dickinson. What can be said about Bruce Dickinson that hasn't been said already? He is an icon. He is a genius. In my opinion, my favorite vocalist of all time, Bruce Dickinson. But Bruce Dickinson is the fucking man. They would not be Iron Maiden without Bruce Dickinson, if you were to ask me. And this is where it all started, Number of the Beast. Yeah, this is the only record to feature Bruce Dickinson. You got Steve Harris, Dave Murray, Adrian Smith, and the last record to feature Clyde Burr.
Right.
So, Peter, I'm going to take it over to you. Do you think this rightfully deserves to be the biggest album to date for metal?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as we talked about in the last episode, the only constant right now with Maiden is change.
Yeah.
That's it is predictable as unpredictability can be.
Right.
And so here we are. We have another new beginning and another ending.
Yep.
We have, like you said, the departure of Paul. Yep. And, to some of us, we can certainly look in hindsight now, all these years later, it's easy, 8,
right.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 50 years later, whatever it was, 82.
Yeah.
40 years later. It kind of worked out okay.
Right.
But when we found out there was a different singer, there wasn't a full confidence yet, because a lot of us who grew up with this stuff in real time liked Paul.
Yeah.
And we were, especially coming into Killers, we were like, okay, this is progressing. Like we said, they're writing better songs. But as we see and where they were headed, Paul was not the guy. Right. And I think, it's not a secret that even Paul himself has said that where Steve wanted to go, he was never going to be able to be that singer.
Right.
So he leaves and we get Bruce in, and not unlike the parallel with Deep Purple, when they brought in Ian Gillan, and all of a sudden things go to a completely different level because you write for the talent that you have in the band. And Number of the Beast clearly is that huge step up, because you now have somebody who can deliver on a level that was just, and let's just call a spade a spade. It was, an upgrade of unmeasurable proportion. I mean, It's just huge. They're just totally different singers. One is not best or better. I don't like that kind of thing.
No.
But they're totally different singers. And, Bruce was able to just take them into a different stratosphere.
Right.
So yeah, the material, the delivery, another album with Martin. The album sounds absolutely amazing. It's complete classic Maiden. Everything's starting to dial in now. And I will say right here, this is probably my favorite lineup of the band. And if this had continued, hypotheticals as they are, I would have not been disappointed to see this lineup continue and go into some, extended albums after this. I have no idea what it would have sounded like or what it would have looked like or anything else.
Yeah.
But there's something about this one that just is so perfect for me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, first of all, you held the album up. We can, talk about the album cover. And if you see the differences here, the one I have is how it first came out. And manager Rod Smallwood was more than a bit PO'd because the colors are all off.
Yeah.
And so, if you've got the early albums, the original release where the covers are much more blue, like this, those are the original ones. And then of course, as you held up, you get the remaster.
Yeah. Yep.
You see the difference, and that darkness comes in, and
right.
But the whole notion of multiple puppets going on here, Eddie holding the devil holding another Eddie, who's really in charge here, right. Who's pulling the strings, and who's really the most diabolical here. You could stare at that cover, and we did for hours and hours hours, dissecting everything that was in it. So we get to an album, and first thing we notice when we're looking at the track listing, and Tyler and I agreed that we would use a remastered version of our set list, right. Which includes an extra track, which we'll talk about. First thing you notice right off the bat, there are no instrumentals.
Nope.
So unlike the first two records, nope. These are all songs with lyrics. So these are all fully formed songs. Right. So that's a big change.
Right.
And keeping the core of the band and just adding Bruce, they just matured. A lot of touring from the Killers tour. So they're just getting better and better as musicians.
Right.
And as we look at the songwriting credits, and we hinted on this with our last episode, that the addition of Adrian Smith as a guitarist was a huge step.
Sure.
But as we said, it wasn't going to take long before he starts to imprint himself in a bigger way. And here it is.
Right.
Writing credits on three tracks, two of them absolute mainstays from this album, and tours subsequently after that. So now Adrian is a full-on contributor from a songwriting standpoint, along with Steve. And so there's that new element. And those of us who love Adrian love him for a lot of different things, but he has a melodic sense about him and a way he writes that, in conjunction with Steve, creates something really special.
Yep.
And so if we look at the tracks here, and I'll go through them, and then I'll rank them in the order I prefer them. We start out with Invaders, one of the two songs on this album that has never been played live.
Nope.
And I'm going to say it right now. Haters, have at it. Commenters, go for it. Invaders is my favorite opening track of any Iron Maiden ever.
Mm-hmm.
I said it.
There you go.
Sorry, I'm not going to apologize, and I'm not even going to qualify it. I just freaking love this song.
Mm-hmm.
The energy, the riff, the power, Bruce's soaring vocals. It is just unbelievably powerful.
Right.
And the other thing I'm going to say right off the bat is, and I'm kind of jumping around a bit today because I got so many ideas in my head, they're about to explode, is this is also my favorite Clive Burr performance this entire album. And I think this is one of the greatest examples of hard rock drumming of the entire 80s. This is just absolutely classic perfection from Clive. Absolutely. He just kept getting better. And now, we talked about it in the first two records a lot. We used the P word. There's way fewer of these punk elements in this album versus the previous two. These are rock songs. These are hard rock / metal songs. Clive is now no longer playing with the really super quick, fast, 8th and 16th in his right hand. He's eighth note and then quarter note, and now he's just hammering. And it still has this perfect pocket, this perfect feel. And Invaders is a perfect intro. You know, da, 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 you know, just, and he's just cruising, you know, and great solos, great extended section. It never lets up for a second. And killer bass line too. Steve is all over the place on this thing. And this is a hint of what is coming later on these later records, because this formula is used a lot.
Yeah.
This is a template for Aces High. This is a template for a bunch of other stuff that comes later. And the fact that it never got played and live, you know, you and I talked about this off camera once. We speculated maybe too high, too fat, you know, for Bruce to do comfortably live. And I could understand that. Right. He's soaring. But what an introduction. Hi, I'm Bruce Dickinson. I just ripped your face off. You're like, okay. All is good in the Maiden world. Yes, I miss Paul, but okay, we're Bruce, one for one. We're really shooting really straight here, and we're hitting our target. So that's a great opener. Children of the Damned is great because we talked about it on the first Maiden, that the Remember Tomorrow kind of feeling. This has kind of got that throwback to that.
Yeah.
A quieter intro, big vocals from Bruce, sweeping and strong, and I'm going to say it, it's been said, operatic. It's, you know, it's big vibrato, a lot of held notes. And again, it's got that great change and great sections, like a Remember Tomorrow and like a Phantom, something like that. This is a absolutely classic Maiden song, and I love hearing this one when they do this live, because I think it's one of the best melodies that Steve wrote, and I just love how the song flows. Great song. And now we get to the first of the two Adrian Smith Harris contributions, The Prisoner. Of course, you know, referencing, and we have to say right here that the lyric content in this is different. These are totally different lyrics than the first two records. They're more, the other ones, like we said, were kind of Jack the Ripper, kind of horror narratives, and there's elements of that here and there. Yeah. But these are kind of little mini stories, you know, little narratives, you know, brought on by experiences, things that Steve read or saw, or in some cases dreamed about. You know, of course, The Prisoner was an infamous television show with Patrick McGowan. You know, I am not a number. And if you ever saw the series, which, you know, I grew up with, you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then Clive's killer drum intro, and then into the heavier, fast, you know, heavy stuff. There may be some slight punk elements to that that comes and goes, but it's still very hard rock, very early metal delivery on this. Huge chorus. I'm not a number, I'm a free man, and the blood is my own. Whatever the lyrics are, because I'm horrible at them. You know, but, and then the great stops is and then he just off they go. And it's super melodic, great solos from Adrian, and it's just a great track and a live staple. And then we get to 22 Acacia, which is now kind of part two of Miss Charlotte. And you know, as Bruce says on the, you know, Beast from Hammersmith, he says, we've found she's got another knocking shop, you know, down at another end. And it's like, and now these are a continuation, and you're like, you know, Charlotte, you can't keep doing this, you know, what's going on with her. Killer opening, killer middle, and then they do a complete change, and then they go into a completely different feel. And then it carries out at the end with an extended instrumental part towards the end. Great song. And, live, it's perfect. It's a great song, and two really, really stellar contributions from Adrian. I don't want to think I'm overstating that, but, up until this point, it was, really kind of almost all Harris, So, Smith's contributions here are really valuable, and then we get to the Number of the Beast. And of course, this is the one that got everybody all in a tizzy, here in the US, the whole Satanist thing. And, it's like, okay, look, and this was a dream that Steve had, and I don't particularly see this as anything. I mean, I've heard scarier stuff on these TV evangelists than I heard in this song. This didn't freak me out. Those guys were real people, and they scared the shit out of me. I'm like, oh my God, you're actually like this for real? And I'm like, okay, this is just a stupid song somebody made up by a bunch of, musicians in England. I go, come on, people, lighten up. But there's nothing like a little crazy Satanist bad publicity to make everybody go, I'm going to go get that just to see what the shouting's about. We love to look at train wrecks, and that's the sad nature of us, but tell us it's something we shouldn't see, and guess where we're going? We're going to go look. And you get to Run to the Hills, obviously one of the huge, and I remember the very first time I saw this video, my friend Ken and I were at the Winery. It was the name of a place in our local university, on a Friday evening, late, having a burger and something to drink. They had the TV up in the corner. I heard the drum intro, and we were like, and we looked up, and that was the first time we'd ever seen an Iron Maiden video with all the lights and everything. We're just like, we got up and we're like in front of the TV like this, just watching it. And we see the black and white footage and all the other stuff, but all we're seeing is Harris going crazy. And this is the fully formed gallop. This is the Iron Maiden, sound that most people would say is their signature. And that just, is on a million records from here to the end of their catalog. Sweeping chorus. Full, just a story. It makes sense. You watch it as a small little mini epic, read the lyrics, and it makes sense. These aren't, I'm going on a date and I want to get laid, and this Maiden never sang about shit like that.
God, no.
Which is fine with me, because I can't stand that stuff. And man, it dates you badly too, because it may have been cool at the time. Sorry, Christine 16 is cringeworthy now. Maybe back in the day it was okay, but now it's just gross. So obviously it's one of their most famous songs. And here's probably the most kind of punkish one, because we get the real quick two hands from Clive, and a lot of lyrics and a lot of words from Bruce, just spitting stuff out, and off he goes, and that carries on. That kind of song we get, to songs like that on the next record. And then we get to a part of the album, Tyler, that I think a lot of people have kind of just dismissed, and I'm not going to. It was a choice at the time between these two songs as to which one was going to be the B-side, and whoever was the B-side, the other one would get on the album. Well, the song they chose to go on the album, I'll go in that order, was Gangland. The second of the songs on this album to have never been played live. And I've seen reviews over and over from Maiden fans. They have this as the throwaway track almost every time, and I don't get it. I don't get it. I think this is a juggernaut. I think this just crushes.
Yeah.
Clive is just on fire. Great riffs, and it's
Right.
just frantically paced. And Bruce is singing his brains out. And it's just one of the most aggressive songs in their whole catalog.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is the hate for this? I just do not get it. And I love this. Now, the flip side, both metaphorically and realistically, is Total Eclipse became the B-side and was left off the original release.
Yeah.
A brilliant song. And they've said that they believe it should have been the other way around. Total Eclipse should have been on there. And I think had that been the case and we had heard Gangland later, I would feel the exact same way going, they're both great.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's perfect with both of them.
I agree.
So that's why I love this version of this remaster, because they're both totally worth being there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Total Eclipse has got a really killer feel to it. And again, both of those were contributed writing wise from Clive. Mm-hmm. And Dave Murray steps in on that one. Now, I don't want to be so petty as to think that Harris put on, that he didn't want one over the other because he didn't have any writing on Gangland and he really wished it was the other way. And I don't, that's a speculation, but both of them are great. Now, Total Eclipse has been played live. Mm-hmm. I think 53 times on the Beast on the Road tour. It was played 53 times. So it became a pretty kind of heavily rotated in there. And the version that's on Beast from Hammersmith is exceptional. Then we get to the epic. And this starts a trend, ending the albums with probably the longest and the most complex and epic of the tracks. Hallowed is, to probably most Maiden fans, in their very top few choices for their favorite Maiden song of their catalog.
Sure.
The way it builds, Bruce is spectacular. The dual lead work, the composition of it. To me, it's a much more advanced Phantom.
Yeah.
Clive is spectacular on it. If you don't play it too fast. There's nothing that'll kill this song than playing it too fast live. It loses all of its feel. It's got to sit in that pocket. And Clive goes back to that single right hand thing, and you can't really do that too fast. I see guys cheat all the time and use two hands, or Nico just plays it open. He doesn't even try.
Right.
And it just doesn't sound like this.
Yeah.
And this is absolute perfection. Mm-hmm. And it's oh my gosh, what a way to close, and what an absolutely stellar and epic song. So, for me, there are no weak spots on this record. None. There's not a second where I'd go, well, let me kind of maybe skip over this. And, and you'll hear my list, and it says a current list as of how I feel today, not when this came out.
Right.
So remember, I've got 40 years with this thing.
Of course.
So my rankings for the songs are, I have Invaders first. It's my favorite track on the album, and it's my favorite opener.
Holy shit.
Sorry.
Okay. Great. That's awesome.
Not going to change my mind, so don't try.
Right.
I like The Prisoner second.
Yep.
And then I've got Gangland third.
Awesome.
I'm telling you, I love this song.
Rooting for the underdog.
Hallowed, followed by Children of the Damned, 22, Total Eclipse, Run to the Hills, and for me, my least favorite, even back then, was always the title track.
Holy shit. Okay.
Yeah. Um, it's catchy. Obviously, the symbolism of it is a Maiden thing.
It is. Yeah.
I think it's one of the least developed of the songs. It's really only got kind of two parts and it just goes back and forth. I don't think it's as interesting compositionally as the ones that come before it.
Okay.
Um, so and maybe I've kind of heard them too much, but it's got a unique feel. But it's just I find the other ones more interesting. It's a great album,
It is.
and I ranked Killers at 10.
Yep.
And I've got Number of the Beast at 9.75, and they will go back and forth, and I'll go 10s, and sometimes I'll even break my rule and go 10 for both of them.
Yeah.
So, but spectacular record, just
Absolutely.
must own, must have.
Yeah, this is a monster of a record. So I don't even know where to begin with this record.
I feel you.
This is actually one of the first Iron Maiden albums I ever bought with my own money. I bought this one and two records that we're going to be talking about later. But yeah, I have so much history with the Number of the Beast, and what a fantastic debut from Bruce Dickinson. He is really, really letting it all out with this record. You know, he stepped into Iron Maiden to prove a point. This is his point. This is some of Bruce Dickinson's best vocal performances on this particular record. Now, let me get into the tracks because you got 9 fucking bangers over right here. It starts out, it grabs you by the neck with Invaders, with that opening riff, and then obviously you have Steve Harris's killer bass line, and it's just energy. If I was to describe Invaders in one word, it's energy. It starts up here and it doesn't rest. It sleeps right here. It's not. There's no sleep with this particular track. No wonder why they never played the song live, because it's just that brutal. Bruce is singing at 90 miles per hour, and when I say he's singing at 90 miles per hour, I don't mean he's kind of rushing a little bit. He is soaring. You know, he is going to lengths that most singers can't even process. You know, he still has that operatic feel, and with that operatic feel, he is just spitting out lyrics and words left and right. It's absolutely fantastic, and you've never heard anything like this. I love the breakdowns in Invaders as well. There's brief little instrumentals here and there, the little 8 measures, and I love, and you just have multiple spurts like that throughout the rest of this track. Like I said, it's just a lot of energy. And Invaders, I agree with you, Peter. I echo that. Invaders is a banger of a track. It deserves much more credit than it gets. I love this track to death. Then you get into Children of the Damned. Now we're getting into a very, very melodic portion of this record. This is kind of going back to maybe that Strange World, Prodigal Son type of feel, where it's very moody, it's very melodic, but yet again, it's so beautifully haunting. The melodies on this track are stellar. And Bruce's vocal performance, especially in that chorus, is breathtaking. He's really going for that beautifully haunting feel with this track. And this track is kind of going along, hence the title Children of the Damned, going back to that horror feel.
Yes.
If I was to put it short, it's basically about possessed children. That's
great movie, by the way.
Killer movie. Yes.
George Saunders.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And this is just a beautiful track. It has its ups, then it has its melodic portions, then it gets heavier towards the end. Overall, this is a fantastic track. One of my favorites off Number of the Beast. So beautifully haunting. Bruce sounds better than ever. The guitar harmonies between Smith and Murray are stellar. Great track. Now you get into The Prisoner. And Prisoner, this is another one of my favorite tracks. It opens up with this stellar, simplistic Clive Burr drum riff. Boo, chop, boo, chop, boo, chop. Then you all of a sudden you start hearing these riffs from both Adrian Smith and Dave Murray. So it starts off with a very simplistic feel, a very interesting simplistic feel, but nonetheless very simplistic. And you're just wondering, it's kind of builds up to this little suspense, and then it goes but kind of goes back to that Invaders thing where it's just the energy goes through the roof completely unexpectedly. And I adore this track. It's a roller coaster. It's just a down roll spiral in the best way possible. And one thing I can take away from The Prisoner is the chorus. The chorus is so freaking powerful. If you have watched Beavis and Butthead, there I'm going back to Beavis and Butthead now. There's actually a brief episode where they actually kind of rip on the chorus because it's just that fucking amazing. You have Beavis and Butthead singing to a bunch of prisoners this particular chorus. One of my favorite Beavis and Butthead episodes, but yeah.
That was cool. Shut up, Beavis. Okay. Shut up, Beavis. Okay.
Perfect. But yeah, that's just a little interesting part of The Prisoner. But The Prisoner, it's such an underrated track. Nothing crazy is going on. It's just boosting up the energy. It's going back to that Invaders thing, and it just doesn't let up. Beautiful chorus, and same thing with Invaders. You have those little 8 measures instrumentals where there's little bits and spurts of that kind of stuff, and there's a lot of galloping riffs that go along with what I'm talking about. The Prisoner is just a banger of a track. Very simplistic for Iron Maiden, but overall fantastic track. Now you have 22 Acacia, and this is pretty much, I guess you can call it Charlotte the Harlot Part 2.
Right.
And you know what? This is actually a track I can kind of leave behind. If I was to pick a weak point on this record, it would probably be 22 Acacia. Not to say it's a bad track, because it's really not. It is still a fantastic track off this record. But I just feel like there's nothing really new going on over here. It's carrying over that same template as Invaders and Prisoner, where there's a lot of high energy, but with a little twist. I do really love that. Again, we're going back to that simplistic thing, where it just opens up with, I'm not sure if it's Adrian Smith or Dave Murray.
It's Adrian.
Adrian, okay. So it starts off with Adrian going, and just keeps repeating, building up. It follows that up with some Bruce lyrics, and it kind of goes into that up and down motion, similar to what we heard in The Prisoner. It goes back to that riff here and there, and then it explodes, goes back to that riff again. I just feel like it's not really doing much new here.
Do you think the ending kind of drags on a bit?
A little bit. I was about to get to that. Yeah. I think this track goes on for a bit too long. I'm not sure how long. I think it's 6 minutes and change, something like that.
Let's see, 6:38.
6:38. Yeah, exactly. So
where the Prisoner's 6, but it doesn't feel 6.
Doesn't feel like it's 6. No, absolutely not. But this track, yeah, I just feel like it's not doing anything new here. Going on for 6 minutes, 38 seconds. It could have been 5 minutes easily, maybe even less. But yeah, that's a little bit of 22 Acacia. It's following that same, prostitution thing as Charlotte the Harlot, as far as the lyrics. This is more of a track as far as the lyrics go. It's kind of looking out for Charlotte in a way.
Right.
It's more Bruce is getting pissed off that people are taking advantage of Charlotte and all of this stuff. So the lyrics are very interesting. But yeah, same thing as The Prisoner, same thing as Invaders. You're getting these little spurts, these 8-minute spurts where they're just kind of going off. Again, not doing a whole lot new, but still an interesting track. And it doesn't piss me off when it starts playing on my turntable. I'll just put it that way. But that ends side 1. What a side. But it doesn't let up because you have Number of the Beast to open side 2. And no matter how many times I've heard this track, this is probably one of my favorites off the record still. I cannot get enough of Number of the Beast. Maybe this is a lot of nostalgia for me talking, because this is actually one of the first songs I ever learned how to play on guitar. Just that riff, that riff alone, that riff, that it just turned into this iconic masterpiece. And you can't talk about Number of the Beast without talking about Bruce's iconic scream. Right after that little narrative that Bruce is doing, and that narrative, you feel that energy, you feel that essence, that suspense with Bruce's voice. It's going up, it's going up. He starts off with this little monotone kind of narrative, and then the creepy atmosphere builds up in Bruce's vocals. He starts getting more experimental in his vocals, and then you hear that scream. Oh my god, talk about fucking goosebumps. It's again, this is Bruce can handle so many things with his voice that most vocalists cannot handle. That scream says it all. It's jaw dropping. It's absolutely jaw dropping. And then right after that scream, the energy does not let down. It's just going off. It's not no breaks, no bullshit. And then it goes right into that chorus. Talk about a punchy ass chorus. And I love this track to death. I can't. This could possibly be in the runs with probably in my top 3 favorite tracks off this record. I'll get into my track list ranking later on, but beautiful epic of a track. And it's no bullshit. I think it's about 4 to 5 minutes, and it just doesn't let down. It really does not let down. It proves its point, and then it just fucks off. Leading into the next biggest hit, Run to the Hills. Run to the Hills. This is another fantastic hit for the band. So when I first heard Run to the Hills, to tell you the truth, wasn't a fan of it. Something about that riff. I'm still not a fan of that riff, that opening riff. It just sounded kind of goofy, and I don't know, a little awkward at times. And then I don't really like Bruce's vocals kind of going along. White man came across the sea, broad. It sounds just kind of cheesy to me.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like, and I kind of still feel that way. I'm like, they could have done something a little bit more interesting with that. But then after that brief little portion, this is another track that just goes off. The energy up. Bruce sounds aggressive as all hell. The lyrical content is absolutely genius. Might be a little offensive at times to some people, but overall, it's lyrical genius. Kind of it tells the story, a thing that Iron Maiden is going to experiment way more later down the line. And but one thing I have to say to Run to the Hills, and people have been saying this in nauseam about this track, is that iconic chorus. Probably my favorite chorus on this album. I mean, you cannot get tired of it. You really cannot get tired of the chorus for Run to the Hills. It's embedded in your brain. Once you hear that track once, it's going to be embedded in your brain the whole fucking day.
It's the ultimate sing-along.
It's the ultimate sing-along. If there's going to be one sing-along track off this album, it's probably going to be Run to the Hills. And it has a fantastic solo as well. I love the guitar work between Adrian Smith and Dave Murray, as always. Killer stuff. And I love the breakdown right after the chorus, where Bruce, and speaking of notes that go on for days,
right.
I love it. Again, one of those spine-chilling goosebumps moments that Bruce delivers with this album. I still love Run to the Hills to this day. Again, when I first heard it, not really a fan, mainly because of that small portion to open the track. But overall, this is a fantastic hit for the band.
It does have one of my favorite Steve moments in it.
Yes.
You're like, oh my god, okay, forget it.
All right, so yeah, that's a little bit of Run to the Hills. Now we go to the Redheaded Stepchild track, Ganglands. Now, Gangland, this is still a banger of a track. This is a great track. The energy is through the roof. Peter, everything you said, I absolutely echo it. Bruce sounds aggressive as all hell. The guitar work is fantastic. A lot of galloping riffs on here. Overall, this is just an aggressive track. Probably one of the most aggressive Iron Maiden tracks, if you were to ask me. Again, it's a track that doesn't let down. However, this is actually another track I can kind of leave behind. Mainly because, again, same thing with 22 Acacia. I just don't see it doing anything new. The energy is up. It's very aggressive. Still a banger of a track. It's just a track that kind of comes and it goes. Maybe not the most memorable track. And I think a lot of that has to do with the placement on this particular track. It's coming off of Number of the Beast and Run to the Hills. And then you have two absolutely monsters of tracks. Epics to the max. Then it goes into Gangland. And then right after that, and I'm going
on the original release.
Yeah. I'm just going to talk briefly about the track the record that doesn't have Total Eclipse. It is coming off of Number of the Beast, Front Hills, then you have Gangland, then you have Hallowed Be Thy Name. You have 3 epics, and then right in between you have Gangland. So I think that's a lot of the reason why this track can it's not the most memorable track to me. If this track was maybe placed on somewhere on side 1, I would have probably appreciated it a lot more. But I think that's just the biggest thing it struggles from, just that placement.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
If Clive had taken his drum part, and he was infamously listening to a lot of Cozy Powell at the time.
Yeah.
If he had taken that drum part and used a double bass instead of what he played, if he had gone, would we be saying this is like the early thrash?
I would agree.
Because if that double bass was kicking on underneath, we'd be like, this is like crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But because he doesn't use the double bass, it's got a more open, less thrashy kind of sound, but it doesn't have any less energy.
No. Yeah, no, I agree with that. No, I agree with that. Absolutely.
And maybe that was something that didn't sit well with the rest of the record.
Maybe.
Because the rest of the record doesn't have that kind of feel to it.
No.
Just curious.
No. Yeah, I would agree with you. But yeah, Gangland, it's still a monster of a track. But yeah, as I was saying before, I think a lot of it has to do with placement from Gangland. But then I'm gonna include Total Eclipse to my review. Total Eclipse is a beautiful, beautiful track. This is a track that should have been placed on the record for eternity. Every single remaster. This is a track that should just been stuck on there. Because this is just another banger of a track. Going back to those little horror themes that you're gonna get with, the first 3 Iron Maiden records. So it's gonna go back to that horror kind of feel. Beautiful chorus, beautiful melodies all around. A very interesting track to say the least. But yeah, Total Eclipse still great track. Then you get into Hallowed Be Thy Name, the closing track off of this record. Peter, you mentioned in your review that most Iron Maiden fans would probably consider this track to be one of their favorite Iron Maiden tracks of all time. God damn it, I am one of those. This is my favorite track off of this record. It gets me every time. And when the song is played live, they do play a little too fast. Kind of loses its soul a little bit when they do play a little fast. But it's still beautiful live. It's still a beautiful, beautiful track. I consider this track maybe even more advanced Number of the Beast title track, because it starts off with that. It's a very atmospheric, airy feel. Bruce's vocals this is probably arguably Bruce's best vocal performances. It's up there as one of his best for sure. And in another instance where a note just drags on, and it feels like it goes on like that, but it is going on so lengthy. The sands of time for me are running low. And as he's dragging this note, you hear this beautiful melody from both Dave Murray and Adrian Smith. Beautiful melody. And I can't get enough of the riff that follows that melody.
That's one of their best.
Oh my god, this is an epic of a track. This is beautiful. Probably this could possibly be my favorite Iron Maiden track of all time. I can't get enough of it. It gets me every time. I don't care how many times I've heard this album or this track. It's a track I can hear for eternity. I love this track to death. An epic masterpiece, and it's definitely gonna follow up. What Iron Maiden will do in the near future. Like you have Peace of Mind, To Tame a Land. That's another epic for Iron Maiden that closes off a record. Rhyme of the Ancient Marrier, 15 minutes, and then you have
Alexander the Great.
Alexander the Great. You can argue the next record with Only the Good Die Young. So it's gonna follow up this little thing where you have these 8 minutes, between 8 minutes to 15 minute track to close the record. But I think this album does it best with Hallowed Be Thy Name. So my overall thoughts with Number of the Beast. This is a banger of a record. This deserves all the credit it rightfully gets. A few weak points, as I briefly mentioned. Production, fantastic. This record front to back just sounds absolutely amazing. This is just a progression. It's what I think of this album. It's just a progression. This is probably in my top 5 Iron Maiden albums of all time. And I am probably going to give this, despite a few flaws with this record that I believe, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. Fantastic record front to back. Brilliant debut from Bruce Dickinson. And there is just so much more great stuff to come. And this was arguably the start of it. Great album. As far as my track list ranking, you have 9 tracks here. 22 Acacia, Ganglands, Invaders, Total Eclipse. Then I'm going to follow that up with Run to the Hills. Then I'm going to go with The Prisoner, Children of the Damned. Actually, sorry. Number of the Beast, Children of the Damned, then Hallowed Be Thy Name. I was sorry, I'm a little all over the place.
That's okay.
Guess I didn't prepare for that one, but
that's all right.
But yeah, that is my track list ranking, and stay tuned for the end of the video because I'm gonna actually write down Peter's rankings and my ranking as well. So just so you guys get a better idea. I know I was a little all over the place.
That's okay.
Yeah, so there it is. Full review of Number of the Beast. Fantastic must-have record if you are not only an Iron Maiden fan, if you're just a fan of music, if you're a fan of metal, this is an album that needs to be in your collection. But with all that being said, that is our review. Let us know what you think in the comments below. We would love to hear from you guys. Peter, is there anything in the works coming on your end? Whether it's Contrarians, Rock's Daydream Nation?
Yeah, we just finished a couple. It'll probably be out tomorrow. Contrarians. We did a album wars or album throwdown between Motley Crue's Shout at the Devil and Rat's Invasion of Your Privacy. We also just recently recorded an episode of our favorite female vocalists.
Nice.
And that one's very interesting. That's a great watch, and is, not to give things away, I'm not going to name any artists, but I think there were 3, 6, 9, 10 of us or 9 of us.
Yeah.
3 picks each, not one duplicate.
Woo. Oh boy.
Not one. So there's some real good things to explore, some bands to check out, and female artists that you may have never even heard of.
Right.
And I love when we can, and as a group or collective, introduce stuff to people or give them things to go hunt and dig up and explore and discover on their own. I think that's one of our duties here, is to give them things to go look at and go find. So got that. Tomorrow I'm doing my first episode with Average Joe, Joe B, and we're going to talk about growing up rock in Chicago. He's from Chicago. I spent most of my young and early adult life in Chicago, so as a musician and everything. So we're gonna talk about the rock scene back in the day and what it was like and all the things we remember and experienced about growing up rock in Chicago in the 70s and 80s.
Hell yeah.
And then next week, of course, we're gonna touch on the next album next Monday.
Yep.
And then the week during the week, I have a show with Peter Kerr on Rock Daydream Nation, and we're going to dig deep into Black Sabbath Sabotage.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's what I've got on, and then a little break for the holidays. So
awesome. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so a lot of awesome stuff on Peter's end. I will check the description down below. All of those channels will definitely be linked. You are watching LP Tremors. Stay tuned for more of the Iron Maiden discography review. Next week, we're going to be reviewing Peace of Mind from 1983. And this is going to be continuing like that. So Peace of Mind, then Power Slave, Somewhere in Time, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, No Prayer for the Dying, and then all the way up to Senjutsu from 2021. So stay tuned for more Iron Maiden discussions. I do have the Friday the 13th series as well with my buddies Ryan Gavalier and David Gallagher. We literally just recorded Jason Takes Manhattan Friday the 13th part 8. I will actually be editing that and posting that video by tonight, so be sure to check that out. And so so Friday the 13th series, we're going to be doing that bi-weekly every Friday usually. And then I'm going to be planning a few solo stuff over the weekend. So I'm going to be recording a beginner's guide to Aerosmith. So I'm going to be talking about 5 Aerosmith records I would give to a non-fan. Completely solo, just me. So that's going to be out over the weekend. And also over the weekend, I will be reviewing and discussing my top 10 record releases of 2022.
Very cool.
So pretty cool stuff in the works. Stay tuned for more. I'm not going to talk to you like, what's up?
May I add one more thing?
Yeah.
Real quick. Absolutely. Sorry, this is completely unrelated, but this is just my little kind of emoting to the people who are out there that I share things with and that I'm listening and interacting with. Keep your ears and eyes and hearts open, people. Our friends, our family, our loved ones don't always put red flags up that they're having trouble or they need help or they could use a friend or a good ear or they're having health issues or whatever those may be. Make yourself available.
Yes.
And be there to listen, be there to support, because trust me, life is a circle. It'll come back around because you will need it at some point yourself.
Of course.
So just be aware. And so all of our friends in the community that we know here, Tyler, who are having some issues or are struggling a bit right now, we are with you.
Absolutely.
We think about 100%. You and we're always available, and you know how to reach us, and we won't be shy reaching out to you either. So I just wanted to throw that, especially around the holidays, we need to do that. So
especially around the holidays. Absolutely. So. Yep. Absolutely. Both of our inboxes are always open for anybody who just needs to talk, needs a friend, whatever. That's always brutally important. But anyway, so with all that being said, you are watching LP Tremors. Stay tuned for Peace of Mind from 1983. We will be reviewing that next week, as I said. And as always, up the irons.
Up the irons.
Stay metal. Stay scared. Bye, guys.